You can serve it with some plantain, tamarind, or ketchup maybe for children. And you can also have some avocado at the side. And yeah, you know, we Caribbean folk, we don't mess around when it comes to seasoning. You know what I'm saying? Like, if the food isn't seasoned, we're not gonna bother eating it. Like, we're just gonna be disappointed and all that. So, gonna have to put the seasoning up in there, right? Green seasoning and garlic. And yeah, like saltfish and all these things from the sea, seaweed, sea moss, all those things are really good for you, really good for your body. It's good to consume kelp and certain things from the sea because it has iodine, and it's good for like your blood and for your body, especially sea moss. I have to go get some sea moss by the Caribbean store, the Caribbean market, because I like their quality of sea moss compared to other places. And yeah, so I usually just blend my sea moss with some water and put it in a container in the fridge, and then I add it to some of my smoothies and drinks and all that in the morning. Fish soaking for Saltfish Accra fritters. This has been consumed for generations, going back to pirate times, you know. On the ship, they would salt the fish and all that to preserve it. And in medieval times and all that. So saltfish has been consumed since like those times when people were traveling by boats, like pirates and, you know, all of that. So I'm gonna make some Saltfish Accra fritters, which is a kind of like an appetizer or snack, Caribbean. Gonna put some spices and herbs in it and all that good stuff because I like seafood, and seafood actually works well with my body. Now, I don't eat it 24/7 and all that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I like to add variety to my diet. Sometimes I'll just have like vegan food, like I'll just make beans and legumes and chickpeas and all that, quinoa and whatnot. So I'm not always consuming fish, but I do like seafood. I find seafood, for me, like it works for me. It works well with my body. I'm not allergic to anything. I'm not like allergic to shellfish or anything like that. And I really like the taste of seafood. Yeah, so I'm just cutting up the onion for this, and then I have to cut up the celery. There's my celery. Oh, there it is. I also like to consume whole foods, like fresh fruits and vegetables, or as we say down in the Caribbean, blue food. Blue food is like whole foods. It's like yam, cassava, you know, like those African kind of foods. Dasheen, kalaloo, aki and all that, you know. So I like my blue foods as well because it really works well with your body and your system, especially if you have Afro-Caribbean, Latino heritage and all that. Like, consuming blue foods is good for you because this whole kind of European or Americanized diet with all the fried chicken, the flour, you know, the wheats and all that, that's not really compatible with a lot of our body types, you know? And you also have to look into your blood type as well. What's your blood type? Is it O, A positive, A negative, AB, or, you know, RH negative and all that? You need to know like what your blood type is as well. Everyone is really like unique and different, and it's like diet and all that is very personal. That's why I don't really preach my diet on other people. And sometimes we don't play when it comes to pepper sauce. Now, some families are not really into the pepper sauce, and some families are. It really depends. I know in some like some of the Latin islands where they speak Spanish and all that. Trinidad is not a Spanish island, by the way. It's not a Spanish speaking island. which a lot of people sometimes think it is because a lot of the names are Spanish. You know, the Spanish were the first colonizers in Trinidad, right? They were the first, they were the first colonizers there, right? But eventually Trinidad was taken over by the French. So then for a period in time, people in Trinidad spoke kind of like Creole, right? They spoke Creole. They spoke a mixture of French and kind of African and all this, and like a warap, as they call it, like a mix of language kind of stuff. And then after the French, then came the English, right? So even when you go to Trinidad now and you go to the parliament and it's kind of like, you look at the education system and the government, it's very British still. Okay, so even if Trinidad is very Americanized, westernized right now in terms of like entertainment or what people do for fun, how they go clubbing and all that, the whole kind of school, like the education and the government, I find is still very British, because the British were there up until like the 60s and trickling on into the 70s. You know, they're finally disappearing in the 70s when my mom was a child. So we speak English in Trinidad, but a lot of the names of places, cities, towns, and all that in Trinidad and TNT, you know, Port of Spain, Diego Martin, you know, that's all kind of like Spanish, right? Because the Spanish were there first. They were the ones, you know, that met the Caribs and Arawaks, the Indians, the native peoples of Trinidad, the Caribs and Arawaks. They met them first, right? Those were the first people in Trinidad before all the kind of all the African people and the East Indian kind of laborers that were brought to work on the plantations. The original peoples were Caribs and Arawaks. They kind of looked like a little bit like Amerindians. Some of them were also Black Indians, so some were very dark, like kind of Garifuna and Taino and all that. They kind of look like, kind of had that look to them, like really dark-skinned Indian or native people, and some of them were brown, so kind of like Amerindian looking a bit. But some also had curly hair too. Not everyone, not all of them had straight hair. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, those were the original peoples, you know, in a lot of the Caribbean islands before everyone else came along. Chinese, Syrian, European, before everyone else came along, those were the original inhabitants of the islands, right? So cassava and all that, the native people would eat cassava. They'd prepare cassava, they'd make bread with it and all that. They did not wear a lot of clothes. Clothing and all that, which was brought in by the Spaniards and the Europeans. You know, religion was brought in by the Europeans, the colonizers and all that. So when you go to the islands now and you see how people are living and kind of how they go about their day-to-day lives, what they do and all that, like sometimes, you know, that's kind of like the trickling down from previous colonization and systems and structures. So like the religion, the school system, like the uniforms, clothing and all that, right? Because like I said before, the original peoples, they didn't really view bodies as like something very sexual. So like if you're walking around naked, you know, no one's gonna attack you and rape you, basically. Like maybe in the States or in some countries, maybe some Muslim countries, like if a female is showing her boobies, you know, her chest, if her chest is exposed, like some men might want to jump on her. But in the Caribbean, like, you know, it's very hot and all that, and people are kind of used to walking around in we're used to seeing people walking around in next to nothing sometimes, you know. In certain islands, you know, not all islands. Some islands are a bit more conservative than others or have more conservative people, but, you know, it's really hot, right? So walking around in next to nothing is normal. And sometimes, you know, we don't necessarily view nudity as something sexual 24/7 like some people in other countries would, you know. To like adjust the heat and all that, you need to be wearing light clothing or loose clothing. You don't necessarily have to be nude, but you don't have to be wearing like covered up in a bunch of cloth. You know what I'm saying? And it's good for your skin to actually get some sun on it. It's good for your skin to like get sun on it once in a while. Yeah. So the great thing about Trinidad is it has such a like mix of different peoples and different cultures that have settled from generation to generation. So we have like a nice mixture of food. We have Chinese food, Indian food. Like a lot of Trini food is kind of East Indian. Like we have the roti and all that, curry. We have nice curries and all that. We also have the Creole, the blue food that was influenced by like the French and African, West African settlers. And then we have, we also have, what else? We have like Syrian food. We have kind of Latin food as well, because some people came from like Venezuela and Colombia and settled in Trinidad in the past as well. So the nice thing about Trinidad is there's such a like mix of peoples and cultures, and that's also reflected in the food as well. And like even compared to other islands, some islands aren't as diverse in terms of culture, like Trinidad. Trinidad has a lot of like diversity, sometimes even more than other islands, and that's really cool. And I also heard, you know, I recently discovered this in a history book. I didn't even know that some Black Americans had settled in Trinidad, I think in the south part of the island in Trinidad. And they were free Black people, like free people of color from the US. Because, you know, when people say, all Black people in Trinidad were slaves and all that, that's not necessarily true. You know what I mean? Because first of all, like I said before, there were Black Indians. So they were kind of like dark-skinned, Black kind of Aboriginal looking, or Black kind of Taino, Garifuna people in Trinidad, you know, with the Caribs and Arawaks. So it's not necessarily true that everyone in Trinidad and Tobago were like, all the Black people there were slaves. So that's why, you know, you have to be kind of careful with how you say things. I know it's really confusing sometimes, but when you do the history, you know, it gets more clear and obvious and apparent, you know, the truth becomes more clear and all that, and then you can kind of speak more accurately on things. And I might not be 100% accurate, but I enjoy learning about these things and even correcting myself sometimes if I did not know in the past, right? Because sometimes a lot of this isn't taught in school. So lemon juice, and I'm a crazy fool, so you know I gotta put this Angostura bitters a little dash in it. So yeah, just to like add some dimension. I like adding different herbs and spices to add more dimension and depth to what I'm cooking. I also like to make a lot of kind of Latin food, sometimes Mexican, sometimes like you know, with the beans and all that. I like to put making a lot of bean dishes, since I do eat a lot of vegetarian vegan food and make a lot of vegetarian vegan dishes. So yeah. So each island in the Caribbean is really unique and different. I find it funny when people just think the only island that exists, or the only islands that exist in the Caribbean are Jamaica and Cuba, because, you know, some people don't know about certain islands, some of the smaller ones, or even some of the French islands. A lot of our French islands don't get recognized, even sometimes by other Caribbean people or other Caribbean islands. It's like, you know, we're sometimes, as people, we live in our own little bubble, and we kind of aren't really curious about certain things, or we're just going about our day-to-day lives not aware of certain things, which is okay. But I like to learn about different kind of countries and places and things, so I guess I'm just curious like that. You know, I like to know what's out there. And yeah, so we have the English speaking islands, we have French speaking islands, and then we have like the Creole kind of islands, Haiti and all that, and then we have the Spanish speaking islands, right? So each island is unique and different, right? Each island kind of has their own kind of culture, customs, and cuisine. And I think I would like to visit more islands. I've been to Barbados, I've been to Jamaica, I've been to, of course, Trinidad and Tobago many times. Tobago is nice. It's slower paced than Trinidad. It's more relaxing, and that can be good and bad. You know, maybe bad if you want to get a lot of things done in a short amount of time. That could be a problem. You know, if you're in a rush to make things happen fast and all that. But Trinidad is good for that. Trinidad is very fast paced. Very good vibrations down there, like very good vibes. Usually in the islands and all that, especially Trinidad and Tobago. I don't really know about the other islands. Like when I go down to the Caribbean, specifically Trinidad, I feel good. I feel like I'm in a good place, and obviously like nowhere in this world is perfect, but I like the food. I like the sunshine. You know, it lifts my spirits. It kind of, I don't know. It's just, maybe it's because, you know, some of my heritage is from Trinidad, so that could be one of the reasons. But I like the food. I like the music, the culture, and all that. The arts. You know, a lot of the artists in Trinidad are amazing and very talented kinds of people, right? So yeah. I haven't really been to any of the Spanish-speaking islands. I haven't been to Dominican Republic. I haven't been to Puerto Rico or anything like that. But I think I will go sometime in the future, because why not? I mean, I've always wanted to go and see what it's like there. But I also want to visit some of the smaller islands as well. Maybe St. Kitts, St. Vincent. I definitely want to go to Grenada. I want to see like the jab. I want to see the jab in action in Grenada. You know, that'd be really cool to see. We'll be there for that. And I love jab music. I love jab music. It's really cool. And yeah, so I'm just mixing the saltfish with the onions, celery, and all that. And then I'm going to add the flour, water. And so all the seasonings are in this. I have the garlic, you know, the garlic sauce I put in as well. I might add some more seasonings. I'm going to see what I have that will complement this in terms of seasoning, and maybe add a little sprinkle of that in. But I think it's pretty much seasoned to perfection by Trinidadian standards. Curry powder, turmeric, some chili powder for like a nice yellow, deep yellow tinge or tint, golden brown tint when it's frying, and hot sauce, some thyme leaves. Get the thyme, chop it up. Thyme leaves and a little bit of chili, turmeric, curry, parsley. Chop up some parsley, black pepper, hot sauce, garlic powder or garlic sauce, green seasoning, all of that. Green onion, regular onion, and all that. And the flour, baking powder. So it'll get it nice and crispy when you fry it. Pepper flakes, red pepper flakes, black pepper, a little bit of sugar, water, and all that. I find it gives it a nice golden kind of color. It makes it a bit darker and gives it a nice yellowish tint. And also I pair it with some tamarind dip, or I find kids like to eat the Accra with ketchup, but you know, sometimes I don't like ketchup. I like to just have it with some tamarind and the turmeric and curry powder, just a little sprinkle of it in the batter to give it the yellow. It complements the tamarind, right? So let's try it. It's really good.